Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or if you're watching this on our rapidly growing YouTube channel, that's Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI staff writer Brandon Peay. Joining me today is our very own publisher, Mr. Andrew Jones. And Andrew, the Tar Heels are going into their second date. So me and Andrew are now here for part two of our UNC football discussion. Today we'll discuss the defense. But before we do that, remember, you can go over to TarHeelIllustrated.com for only $8.33 a month. Get access to everything we do. Get access to all football and basketball recruiting. That's Dina's work, David's work, Andrew's work, everybody's work. Get on those message boards. You would have known about Zayden High trending towards the Tar Heels a long time ago had you been a member of Tar Heel Illustrated. So go over to TarHeelIllustrated.com and join for only $8.33 a month. Okay, Andrew. Going into the second bye week of the season, UNC's defense is obviously better than it was at the beginning of the year, but still not very good. So just going through, what are some of your general thoughts on UNC's defense so far going into the second bye week?
Is it better? I asked that not rhetorically. They weren't very good against Duke. Duke's not an electrifying offense, but Duke ran for, 290 or something like that. And Riley Leonard threw for 245. I thought the defense was getting better because of Virginia Tech and Miami, but Virginia Tech's offense is anemic.
Yeah.
They're terrible on offense. And Miami's one-dimensional. And they made them super one-dimensional in that game because Miami ran for 41 yards or something like that in the game. As much as the Hurricanes are trying to develop a run game, they're not able to. So Carolina was pretty good in the run defense in those two games. They were terrible in pass defense against Miami in the sense that they gave up almost 500 yards, but they did keep the Hurricanes out of the end zone a lot. And ultimately, that's the most important statistic, is keeping teams from scoring. They have bent a lot, and they've broken some.
Yeah.
They broke a little bit too much, I think, the other night against Duke. Should not have been in that position. They were seizing control of the game and had to score a touchdown with 16 seconds left in order to win the game. So there's a lot of credit to go for their ability to do that. And I will give the defense this credit too. And this is why I do think the potential is there for the defense to dramatically improve the rest of the way. But, we've been saying this for a month and a half now too, okay?
Yeah.
But as bad as the defense is played on a snap-for-snap basis, and it has been bad, there's no other way around it. There have been some really good players. Like Cedric Gray's done a great job at times. DeAndre Boykins has been really, really good. Power Eccles has been pretty good at times. Kevin Hester has really played well of late, getting a lot more snaps. So there are some little bright spots here and there, but collectively hadn't been very good. But what's really unique about this group, and I think it speaks to the talent level, because in order to make plays, you got to have guys that can make plays and step up. So that's talent usually comes through in those situations, right?
Yeah.
So the 4-0 on the road, talent, Rucker and Taylor made a play at App. They go to Georgia State. They got a 3-and-out when Georgia State had the ball in Carolina territory with a minute and a half left in that game. All right. Then they go to Miami, and there's the last two plays of that game for the defense. Cedric Gray keeps the Miami player inbounds, keeps the clock from stopping, panics Miami's offense, and then Rucker gets the tip. I think it was Rucker gets the tip, and DeAndre Boykins gets the interception. A week later at Duke, again, next to last offensive play for Duke, Cedric Gray with the PBU. Great coverage on that play. And then there was the tip and then the interception by Will Hardy. Taylor, I believe, with the tip. And Will Hardy gets the interception to end the game. So the last two games on the road, they've had tip passes that were intercepted on the last offensive play by the opponent. And in the three last offensive plays by opponents that stand out, that secured wins, you had Rucker and Taylor making the play against App. You had Rucker getting the tip against Miami and Taylor getting the tip against Duke. So you've had Rucker and Taylor involved in those things. They're very good players, and their talent has shown up as well in those situations. So you got a defense that's getting shredded. We're going to get into some of the stats here in a minute. But you also have a defense that has stayed with it enough to make a play when it absolutely has to make a play. And that says something about those kids. And I think, to me, It's an indicator that more of that can happen during the course of the game moving forward, which would mean they're a better defense. It means they'll get off the field earlier in series and not give up so many damn yards than what they've shown so far.
You're right. You're right. All right, we will get into some of those stats in a little bit, but I do have one more question for you. So the last 3 games, UNC's defense has allowed 0 points in the third quarter. What are you seeing particularly that's different with UNC's defense in those moments when they look good versus every other time when, you know?
Well, I think Mac would tell you right away it's adjustments made at halftime. They made clear adjustments against Duke. Yeah. Duke had to change offensively in the second half. There's a sustainability issue with this defense, which is quite obvious. They make some adjustments, but then when the other team adjusts, how do they adapt during the course? You get a few stops in the third quarter, and then at one point in the third quarter, late in the third quarter, in fact, up to the trip play, Carolina had outgained Duke 169-47 in the quarter. But then Duke, after the trick play, it's like Carolina's defense, they give up 20-yard play, 15-yard play, and the next thing you know, they're in that spiral mode again. So they have the talent. I don't think the scheme is entirely an issue. I think there are people that are justifiably concerned about how far off the DB, the corners play. They're concerned that they don't blitz a whole lot, but I could tell you, but speaking to people in the program, that one of the reasons they don't blitz that much is because they're terrified to leave those corners alone because they don't trust they could consistently cover. If they knew that the corners could consistently cover, they would bring DeAndre Boykins more. They'd bring a safety more. They would do other things, but they don't have that faith just yet. So they haven't blitzed a lot. I think they blitzed more than 11 times in a single game. But recently, they've had some success with those blitzes. They had, in the Miami game, you had Boykins, you had Grimes. Boykins got a 4th down stop on a blitz.
Yep.
They had a little bit of success the other night blitzing, forcing the quarterback to move and disrupting. But they're in base. They're in keep everything in front of you mode because there's not a lot of faith yet in the group's ability to be consistent. And I think a lot of that is guys elevating their individual play, especially at the corner. Brandon, as well as anybody, if you have lockdown corners, changes what you could do on defense.
Oh, for
if
sure.
you don't have lockdown corners, then you kind of have to work around that. And for all the talent that Tony Grimes has, and for Storm Duck, who is playing better now than he was earlier, he's inching closer to looking like the guy before all the injuries. At some point, they both should be able to be lockdown corners at the college level. They're not quite there yet. So their growth and development is just as important as anybody else's. And I do think up front, getting more of a conventional pass rush, being better stopping the run, making the run fits, all that kind. We were talking the other night. You and I were discussing the other night, hey, they made their run fits there. They didn't there. Yeah. And it's so noticeable because they're a different looking group up front when they do, as opposed to when they don't. And it's not just up front. Run fits are throughout the defense, but the linebacker makes his run fit. Doesn't really matter if the tackle doesn't make his run fit. So yeah, that's kind of where they are. They're wildly inconsistent, but the uptick stuff, I think, is what people should look at and say, okay, we're not happy with the defense. And I'm speaking for Carolina fans here, because I imagine what they're all saying. Certainly Twitter says this. We're not happy with the defense, and that's kindly putting it. But you should at least grab on to the fact that these guys have made plays where they absolutely have had to get wins. And that's that morsel, that little morsel that says, okay, it could become more than a morsel. But they need for that morsel to become a meal at some point. And if it does that with this offense, it's going to be a really good football team. But there is only 5 games left. Time is starting to run out for the defense to be anything remotely close to what a lot of people thought it would be, Brandon.
I agree. I don't know. I think the specifically for numbers, I think the App State game kind of got rid of any notion of them being a statistical good defense. But I do think this group is growing closer together. I remember after the Duke game when Tony Grimes got beat for the touchdown, he got beat for a touchdown. And I remember all the guys, when they were lined up for the point after the touchdown, all the guys came over there and kind of patted them on the head, patted them on the back, let them know like it's all right, we'll get back into this. I think that's a sign of growth with this defense because obviously we saw earlier in the year they were arguing. So now that they're coming together, maybe that'll help them take a step forward.
The players only meeting was huge.
For sure.
And to look, since the players only meeting, they shut out Virginia Tech in the second half.
Yeah.
And then they had the tip interception and Miami tip interception to end Duke. So they've stepped up and made plays. I think that's a great point, Brandon. They're well connected. There's a lot of harmony on defense. And that's another reason people should be optimistic that they're going to make improvements. They're never going to be a great defense. And even as much as people say the App State game skews the numbers, and it does a little bit, they still gave up 496 yards passing to Tyler Van Dyke. They gave up 542 yards to Duke. So the defense is not good, but there are signs that should give people a little bit of optimism that it can get better and perhaps will get better.
Yeah, for sure. Some of those stats you were talking about earlier. All right, the optimistic.
We should have done this on Halloween, right?
Yeah, for sure. UNC is 125 in total defense, allowing 476 yards per game. Only 2 teams in FBS football allow more first down conversions on third down than the Tar Heels. And that was Charlotte and what was the other school?
Just more first downs. Charlotte and Ohio, Carolina's allowed, they're 129th in first downs allowed. Charlotte and Ohio have allowed more first downs. So Carolina's allowing 26.4 first downs a game.
Wow. Also, they're 124th in passing yards. I think that kind of goes back to the defensive back discussion we were just having. It's just, AJ, do you see these numbers improving at all, or like what should we make of these numbers?
I think I'm not going to say that I do see them improving because I don't think the way the defense is played right now, you'd have to have a lot of cash you could just throw out the window to put any cash on saying, yes, they are going to get better in these areas. I will say I think they can. And that's the key. I think they can. Gene Chizik didn't forget how to coach. There's a lot of talent on that side of the ball. They're getting healthier. They very well could have Dequarius Conley for the Pittsburgh game. Guys step up and have moments. And a lot of times it's just 1 or 2 players that are out of position. They're still having out of position issues. And also the missed tackle problem flared up. They had 17 missed tackles against Duke. They had been improving in the missed tackle numbers, but a lot of stuff just kind of crumbled in the Duke game. A lot of we thought the run defense trend was getting better. The missed tackle trend was getting better. Getting off the field was getting better, and that wasn't as great against Duke. So although Duke was 3 for 5 in the red zone, so they did keep them out. Do I see it getting better? I think it can get better. I think it can get better across the board. The coverage must get better. And they have said this. Last week, Gene and Mac were very open about the fact that our pass rush is ahead of our pass coverage.
Yeah.
That's good because it kind of starts with a pass rush, but it's not a great pass rush. They're not pulling quarterbacks to the earth a lot. They are forcing quarterbacks to move some, and they're doing it with mostly a conventional pass rush, but the coverage has been suspect. And it needs to get better. There's no other way around it. Yeah. I think the couple stats, I have them written in small print over here. It was the third down defense where they're 90th in the country, which is not good, but fourth down defense are 45th, and red zone defense, they're 64th, which is right in the middle. The reason I think those numbers are a little bit higher than the general stats, again, it goes to the dude factor. They have talent. They have guys that step up and make dude plays at times, and certainly in some of those moments. So you see a little truer representation of the talent factor in some of those numbers than in the general numbers. I think in the general numbers, it's just there's a guy that makes a wrong read and he doesn't play it right. Yeah. Or a guy just is out of position. Tony Grimes missed a play the other night where some people are questioning effort. It looked to me like he just was twisted and wasn't positioned right. He didn't read the back properly to be in position to make the play.
On the touchdown run you're talking about?
Yeah, it was on a touchdown run, yeah.
I know you're talking
about.
Yeah.
Some people say, well, he didn't make the effort. I just don't think he read it right. So his body was late to react. So there are little things like that that they must be more consistent with.
Inches.
Yeah. So, you could be right on point for 9 of 10 snaps individually on drive, but if a different guy is not on each of the 10 snaps, that's how a team goes 85 yards in 10 plays and scores. So 10 of 11 could be doing. That's why the kids all say we got to do our 1 of 11. If each of them did their 1 of 11, that means it's 11 of 11, and then you make plays and you get off the field. So that's another reason why the PFF grades are as high as they are on defense, because again, Grimes may grade out really well. If he's on the field for 72 snaps, he may grade out really well in 65 of them. 66 of them, but it's those 6 or 7 he doesn't. I'm not singling him out for any other reason, use him as an example. It's those 6 or 7. There's 11 guys out there. So if they each play every play and they each are off on 6 of them, they're not lined up right or misread on 6 of them, that's 66 plays. That's how you have a defense that ranks as poorly as this one. So they believe they're a lot closer to getting this fixed than the common eye, the non-trained football eye would see, or even ones that have a fair idea. I'm not 100% convinced they're going to get this fixed all that much. I think that they can, and they believe that they will. So I guess that's what counts the most, but they're going to get tested. Their run defense is going to get tested against Pittsburgh. Their physicality is going to get tested against Pittsburgh. Their overall focus will get tested when they go up to Charlottesville.
Yep.
And then when they go to Wake Forest, everything's going to be tested there.
Yep, I agree with you. I think the talent, the point you made about their talent it stands out. I think the offense and Drake May are so good that it allows the defense to be momentarily great, to show momentary greatness. I know they want them to be great all the time, but as long as they can, their job is just to kind of stay in the game, don't allow 61 points like they did against App State. But Andrew, I think that's a good point to wrap it up. Everybody, thank you for watching. My name is Brandon Peay. He's been Andrew Jones. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.